Hey, how are you doing? So this video is to show you how to seal an outboard motor to a transom. What you got to do is, well, first of all, your stainless bolts can be galled very easily if there's any sealant on there or anything like that. So what you want to do is just use your hand wrenches and just try to back it out. And if that doesn't work, try tightening a little bit, back it out. Check your bolts, make sure that their threads aren't all galled or any streaks in there. So what I'll show you is basically you pull the engine out and you have to mount it. Has to be on a engine lift, or what you can do is what I did is use 4x4 posts and I put a 6x6 beam across, and the engine's totally suspended. But what you got to do is get the bolts out. If you have any damaged bolts, you just want to replace them. I recommend replacing them. Once you have this thing sealed in place, you don't want to torque the bolt at all or spin it. So you want to make sure it's done right. So just be very careful, because any sort of sealant on your thread of your stainless will gall it. And then cross thread and what have you. So yeah, so I'll show you the next part of the video, and just make sure all the surfaces, like you pull the surface apart. What I do is I use a putty knife, and then I use 120 grit sandpaper, and then follow it by acetone. I just use carb cleaner. You make sure that surface is clean, wipe with paper towel. So yeah, in the next video I'll show you. So this is what we got here. The engine's suspended by the posts, the 4x4. We have a 6x6 on top. So I'm the third bolt up from the bottom, third bolt up from or down from the top. Use sandpaper. Then I've used some carb cleaner on there. What you want to do is just wipe the surface down with carb cleaner and paper towel. And then now I have this turnbuckle, and then I have a engine hoist on the bottom of the skeg, so I can tilt it forward a little bit, but I'll get the bottom bolts in. You're going to want to use probably I would say 9mm to 12mm bead. A lot of engine manuals say when you're installing, let's say you're installing an engine pan to the engine block. It calls, Japanese manufacturers call for a 3-inch or 3mm bead. So this skeg, you're going to want a 12mm bead. So the idea is that it'll crush down, and any sort of let's say the top of the jack plate is pushed out a little bit from this trim. So I got some trim down here. See? So the jack plate on the top is going to be pushed out a little bit. So I'm going to go with the 12mm bead, and the idea being is it'll crush down, right? So put a bead on there, and then we'll get her done. I'll show you the end product here. So this is to show you the end product here. So what we got is squeeze out on the sides. I mentioned earlier this trim piece. The front of the jack plate will stick out a little bit. So what you want to do is have squeeze out here. All the way down to the bottom. There's a little bit less squeeze out at the bottom, and then if you look, you see how it sort of puckers there. So that means that you got a good seal. And all the videos I've seen, guys have used or put the nuts on the outside. I mean, you could put the bolt the other way around, but that's not going to leak. I mean, you got a washer there, and it's all sealed up. yeah, so then basically you just want to make sure everything is, you could tape it off before you do it. Doesn't matter. I'm going to paint it anyway, black bottom coat paint. So here's the other side. Squeeze out, and then you definitely have a good seal around the hole. And so before I put the jack plate on, you put a ring around, 12 millimeter, and then down here you put a ring around. And what I did is I just went straight up. And then there's this lip here. I put sealant under here, behind the jack plate. Just do it down, around, under the trim, and the same on the other side. Around, under the trim, down, and then around. And then, I mean, if you got time, I mean, you could put tape down there, right, and then peel it when you're done. And thanks for watching, and hope that you got some information from this. And just a reminder, don't use a impact gun with fine thread bolts. You can use it to to get the nut up close, but do not use your impact to loosen them or to tighten them. And yeah, I put about 30 pounds of, I mean, and this is one thing that I don't believe in is torque wrenches. You can judge by the size of the bolt. Pretty much the only time you need a torque wrench is if you're doing strength to yield bolts or torque to yield bolts in engine block. But the size of the bolt, I mean, you have a small little bolt, say you're doing a VST, doing a carb. I mean, you're looking at a foot-pound. I mean, you could look at the specs, but yeah, you don't need a torque wrench for anything really. Bigger bolts, 50 foot-pounds, 70 foot-pounds. And over time you get used to the amount of force it takes to achieve 30 pounds, which is not very much. And what does a torque wrench do? It will fail on you and it'll over tighten your bolt. So there's another reason I don't believe in torque wrenches. It's not good for anything except the rare occasion where you're doing, like, say, an engine, like say you're doing connecting rod bearings. Yeah, okay, buy a new torque wrench, but don't trust it again in a couple years because it could over tighten your bolts. All right, well, thanks a lot for watching, and hope you have a good one.